When we sort of think about how public school students look as applicants, I think in many ways to colleges, they look wonderful, right? And I often tell my students, because I work at an independent school, most students go to public school, right? So the most I hate to say it, the most talent just because of numbers, right? The most diversity, right? It exists in public school because 70% of the population goes to public school. So colleges really appreciate that because it gives them a wide variety, a wide landscape of students to choose from. One of the other things that public schools do is they offer a curriculum often, and they offer ways in which college admissions can digest the information that is maybe easier to digest. We don't know if it's the most, you know, the best way to do admissions, but public schools en masse may offer AP courses. They may offer international baccalaureate courses. Often, public schools will do things like rank their students, so you know who's the number one in class, who's number two in class, who's number 50 in class. That information, that numerical information, is very helpful for colleges when they're evaluating applications. Private schools often don't give a lot of that information, so it's a little more tedious to evaluate those students. Can you go to an Ivy League school if you went to a public school? And the answer is absolutely yes, right? In so much as the numbers we spoke about before, most students go to public schools, so that's the majority of students going to college in general. And again, when colleges are looking at students, they're looking, and especially the Ivy League schools, and all colleges are looking for excellence in academic prowess and in personal citizenship. But the Ivy League schools, because of something I call, and forgive my English foul, their knownness, right? Everyone knows, the Ivy League schools, so they're in a privileged position where they can really be the most selective institutions in the country, and they especially like the diversity and the talent and the sort of texture of the students who are coming out of public schools. I'm I don't mean to overgeneralize private schools, but en masse, private schools cost money, right? Some students do receive financial aid, but because of the cost, right? The cost hurdle, socioeconomically, private schools are skewed in a way that the students at private schools tend to be more affluent, where students who are at public schools tend to represent a wider and probably a more true representation of the socioeconomic landscape. So for that reason, Ivy League schools also want students who sort of, like other colleges, represent the world, represent our community, and public schools shine very brightly. Public school students shine very brightly in that process. As a public school student, I think there are many ways that you can be involved, right? And the ways to make your application not unique, right? So I don't think students have to always have an application or a talent or a story that is so different, right? It's got to be one that is vivid, right? That is one that explains sort of who you've been, right? Who you are now, and who you're going to evolve into being as a college student. So as students put together their applications, I think it's really important to think about the academic piece being very, very important, right? And it will enable colleges to ascertain whether you can do the academic work there. But the things that they're going to look most closely at, and I tell my students all the time, when a college evaluates a student, say if a student's in committee, there just isn't a lot to talk about when you talk about academics. Like, you can give their GPA, right? You can give their rank in class. You can give their test scores. You can read every class they've taken throughout high school, and it might fill a minute, right? Most of the discussion is about who the person is, right? What is their life? What do they choose to do with their own time? So I tell students to focus on writing about themselves and telling the world who they are and why the world would want them in their space, right? And then I tell them, talk about the things you've done outside the classroom, and ensure that you're describing what you do with detail. Let people know that your resume is not just a list of things that you're involved in. Tell them about the specific things that you're doing. So they may not be unique things, but if they're things that sort of say, this is a student who's going to come here and contribute and enrich our community, you don't have to be unique. You just have to be a super smart person and someone who's a really good citizen who's going to contribute. All right. Um, the advice I give to public school students when they come to the intersection of pursuing college, and they may not have an in-house college counselor, or because of the volume, right, of their senior class, personalized instruction may be difficult for them to attain. Um, One of the things they have to do, they have to be independent in their journey in many ways, and making sure they're doing their own research, going to websites like the College Board, to individual schools' websites so they can do their own research, and reaching out to college admissions people. Right, they're super helpful. And they totally understand that public school students, especially students at larger high schools, may not have the same resources to get college counseling. For those who are fortunate enough to um, retain the services of an organization like Quad Education, that is really what I tell my friends who I went to college with, who live in affluent suburbs. I say, instead of sending your child to private school, send them to the excellent public school that's in your community, and then get someone who's an expert in college admissions counseling, right? Just like you might get an expert to give you guidance in other sort of big consequence, right? Large expense, decisions that you're making as a family. I think it's important to have an expert that can lead you through that process. So get someone from an organization like Quad, or find someone who you know who knows college admissions really well, and get some information from someone who knows current college um, context, not context from when they went to college.